that this aspect of Gandhi's teaching was equally important. The high standards of moral and spiritual discipline that Gandhi invokes were traditionally part of the sadhana or spiritual practice of monks and saints, but decidedly not of people in political life. Gandhi, by contrast, considerably softens the traditional dualism between religion and politics. Instead, he attempts to forge a non-dual relationship between religion and politics, but of course with sharply different definitions of both. Religion is now seen as reverence for and service to all of life, which, if it is true service, must necessarily lead to politics, the arena for the greatest potential public service, and where politics in turn is saved from power-mongering and the conflict of factional interests by the moral purification involved in religion at its best. It is very important to distinguish Gandhi's highly moral notions of both religion and politics from the ideological conceptions of them all too common in our time. Certainly the rise of religious fundamentalism and right-wing religious groups would make any peace-loving person nervous about some of the marriages that have been effected between religion and politics in our time. It should be clear, however, from what I have written, that the moral checks and balances that Gandhi exercised over religion and politics purified both domains and offered the world a far different and more noble conception of them that we have yet to measure up to. I'm going to say a little bit. Danny, how much time would you suggest? 5 minutes? All right, okay, so that gives me a little time to talk about the importance of interreligious dialogue and the parliament with reference to Gandhi. The first thing I want to say is that as far as the culture of peace is concerned, the notion of peace is a very rich and comprehensive notion. It's far richer than thinking of peace merely as the absence of conflict or war. In fact, it's because people begin from the assumption that war is inevitable that peace is, by contrast, seen as a kind of default position. I would argue it's the other way around, and I think Gandhi does too. This is sort of portrayed, if you want, even by an examination of some of the words for peace in the respective religions. I'll look at just three, which in fact the Parliament uses quite often in some of its speeches and prayers. Shanti is the word for peace in Sanskrit and in Pali. Salam is the word for peace in Islam, of course, and Shalom is the word for peace in Hebrew. All three words, and I've checked, have a very comprehensive and deep meaning in all three traditions, and I'm sure if we went into other traditions, we might find something similar. There are at least three dimensions to peace seen in this rich and comprehensive way. One is the peace within ourselves, to be at peace within ourselves. And again, it'll be highly ironic if people teaching techniques of nonviolence were to go about it in a pretty violent or angry way. Happens, unfortunately, some of the time. The other dimension, of course, the second dimension of peace is peace with our fellow humans and with all living beings, I would add. That is the principle that comes from the Jain tradition and from the Buddhist tradition as well. And finally, the third dimension of peace is peace with nature and the cosmos, which now the ecological movement is trying to draw on. If I had time, I would in fact try to show that Gandhi's culture of peace in the communities that I spoke about was in fact as comprehensive as this. It certainly embraced the first dimension, trying to be peaceful within ourselves through prayer, through penance, through working, sharing the products of our work. It certainly in a community had to do with trying to solve social conflicts. And again, those of you who saw the film might have seen the tussle between Gandhi and his wife over the cleaning of latrines. In Indian caste society, the cleaning of toilets and latrines was not a work for the higher caste that both Gandhi and his wife belonged to. But Gandhi insisted that work was going to be equally shared in all the communities, and that he and his wife were both going to have to clean not only their own toilets, but the toilets of others as well, which is something unheard of in Indian caste society. His wife naturally was furious and said she hadn't married him in order to become a toilet cleaner. But Gandhi, stubborn as he was, insisted that he was going to do it if she, and that's, in a sense, he sort of won her over by his example. He would clean the toilets that she was assigned to clean, and finally Kasturba, his wife, sort of relented.